So the other day, a person I know, they decided to go to Myrtle Beach on a short mini vacation over the weekend, and it clicked in my head the other day that I could have easily had them meet me at a given airport and actually fly them down to Myrtle Beach, since it's only like a 40-minute flight versus a 2.5 hour drive for them. And with that, I realized that I never actually done a video on how to do the homework on even basic flights like this, and that way you can actually become a better pilot yourself. So first things first is I want to mention that I am not instrument rated, and if you are looking at getting your pilot's license in the United States, you may not know this, but everybody who gets their pilot's license, there is something called a VFR, Visual Flight Rules, and IFR. Everybody who gets their pilot's license, you're under VFR until you get a lot more training, pass a lot of tests. It's very, very, very difficult to do it all. But then you can become IFR. IFR, I'm going to get into the differences between VFR and IFR in a different video. And plus, I'm going to get into class airspace, how to tell between the actual airspaces. In the game, it really doesn't matter one way or another, but in real life, it definitely does matter. Plus a few other things I'll get into in a different video because that's a beast into itself. But I will mention this, that VFR has a lot of restrictions. So for example, right here, we can see that just taking a look right here, like say for example, you got 1,000 feet above, 1,000 feet below, and that horizontal. Well, the thing is Class G, you can see that you're able to go and have the minimum for visibility down to 1 statute mile. So that's 1 mile going straight. And a lot of pilots say a lot of these minimums are too low. Now, we're not asking for it to be increased, but a lot of pilots, what they do is, okay, take the number and double it or triple it type of situation. You know, if a clouds are, or let's just say, for example, 2,000 feet above you, yeah, you probably don't want to be stuck down at 1,000 feet level. Yeah, that's just, no. You probably want a thing to be a bit higher. So you probably want it to be 4,000 feet, 5,000 feet type of thing, above you type of situation, depending on how far and how high you're traveling. One big thing to note that a lot of people may not know is when you're traveling through VFR, you are not allowed to travel through clouds at all, except for emergencies. Emergencies trump everything, so, but outside of emergencies, you are not allowed to travel through clouds at all. It also should be noted that if you are doing VFR, you cannot travel above 18,000 feet. But it should also be noted, and something that is not really shown in the game, is above, I think it's like either 10 or 12,000 feet in the air, you need to have a pressurized cabin, or you need to be sucking on an oxygen tank, because there's just not enough oxygen when you get a certain height. So yeah, but I wouldn't recommend doing that anyway. So yeah, but the reason why I bring this up is you need to know this stuff in order to figure out, can you even fly that day. So if we take a look at sites like this, and I'll leave a link down below to all this stuff, we can actually see some information like the actual cloud coverage and stuff like that, at least what it thinks it's going to be. So in this case, we can see we're at 3,100 feet. So for a Class C airspace, I think it said 1,000 feet or something like that. And basically what we're looking at is 2,000 feet of altitude, which is not that high at all to get out of that area. So obviously we don't want to do that. And like right here where it's 2,000 feet, we, yes, technically could do whatever, but no, we wouldn't want to do that. We would want to wait at a different time. So this is where that comes into play is understanding how high is the clouds going to be at the bottom. Now, with that, we can also take a look at the average wind speed, and that tells us what time is the most dangerous to take off or land. So this is fairly important. For those of you who don't know, you have something called headwinds and tailwinds. I explained this in my previous video pretty deeply, but real quick, if you got a crosswind, it can actually harm you landing or taking off. So understanding the actual direction of the wind is helpful. If we go to this particular site, we can actually see that and actually see what it thinks that the wind's going to be like for that given time. So note that, but the higher the wind at certain times, the more the problems we're going to have. And then if we have something like this where it's like 52% rain, and then we got like a peak right here, we know somewhere about mid between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. we're probably going to get some rain or something like that. And it's just going to be very short. So we can actually see, okay, we probably want to say, oh, if you need to be picked up that day, then we're going to have to do that or go outside of that period and go from there. So this is where that comes in, because if some Joe Blow says, hey, can you drop me off at this location from your plane? And I can take a look and say, will the weather even match up? Will the minimums allow me to even go there and do what I need to do? Or will I have problems and you know, go from there? And I can quickly say, yeah, sure, we can figure something out or not, depending on things. Now, let's say that I'm not sure about things about airspace and whatnot. What I would do is, first things first, is I'll go to a thing like this and it just tells me what airport I'll be taking off from. So, for example, right here, we can take a look and try to figure out what class airport it is. And then we can go down to the airport that they want me to go to. So I can see like a Class C right there, and I can figure out minimums and all the other stuff. Now, with that one in mind, because I'm in North Carolina is loaded with two things above everything else: mercenaries and military. The fact is there's a lot of military space. So with this particular airport, it's right on the edge of the military space. So what I would want to do is figure out, okay, how can I get around the military airspace? You know, technically we'll be fine. Don't really have to worry about things because we can, 99% of the time fly through it and no real problem. Sometimes you probably contact and find, oh, we got a problem. But for the most part, we should be fine in general speaking. My point is you still keep in mind, if you're close enough to the base, keep in mind, and that way you're not really screwed over with a F-18 ramming into the side of your plane. So note that, because for VFR, the tower doesn't have to tell the F-18 that there is a plane out there, and the plane doesn't have to tell the tower it is there, depending on the actual regulations and stuff like that, and what's going on. But it is smart to have some communication. And even still, and this is something that's not really simulated into the game itself, is you should be talking to the military bases still, so you ain't run into certain problems when they're doing their little exercises or something like that. Because I've seen it a few times where we're about to go war or battle or something like that, and for 10, 20, 30 minutes straight, you'll hear fighter jets going off and cargo planes and stuff like that going off out somewhere. So you don't want to be in the crossfire of all that and be on the news as the person who killed a bunch of military people because you decided to fly that day. So that's something that you may want to note when you're doing that, is figure out how to get around these areas and how to get down to the area that you need to as best and quickly as possible, while realizing the restrictions on the airspaces and other things. Again, in a different video, I can get into how to read this, and that way you'll understand all this a little bit better. But this is a little bit going to be already in depth than that. So let's say, for example, days come, and today I'm going to be taking off. So what I'll do is I'll pull up the weather reports for the place I want to land at and the place I want to take off from. The absolute first things I pull up. Reason why is if it doesn't hit the minimums, in my personal minimums or the legal requirements, then it's a no-go. I can just tell the person, hey, this is not going to work today or whatever, find a different way. Yeah, because, legally or safety, whatever. And, go from there. So with here, I can actually even see here what type of cloud system I can be. Like if I went there right now, I can see that, I need to be about 3,000 feet. And I should be fine, go from there. But for the most part, just go from there and I should be fine. Now, with that, I can take a look at my the airport I'll be picking them up from and go from there. But I also take a look at the wind. I take a look at the current wind and what is suspected. And the purpose of this is I can figure out which side of the runway I need to land on if I have a choice. And I can easily, guide myself into whatever area. Following that is I need to take a look at the airports, especially the one I'll be landing at, but the airports. And this tells me when it's attended, the tower, the frequencies. This also tells me a few other things like the actual class, the airspace, class C. So I can see that's, it's whatever. And then I can see certain other things. Let's see if I can find it right here. So one thing that some people may not know is when you're flying out, darker times, either early in the morning, late in the day, or nighttime, you are obviously going to need lights. And even sometimes, certain times of the day, you're going to need lights. So on your radio, by clicking it a few times, you can get the actual system to do something. So if you're tuned into the right thing, you can click it 3 times to do low intensity lights, 5 times in 5 seconds for medium, and 7 times in 5 seconds for high intensity. So you can actually control the lights to help you land. The game doesn't actually represent this. It'd be kind of nice if it did, but unfortunately it doesn't. But in the real world, what I would do is I would actually have this printed off on what's called a knee pad. Get into that stuff much later, go from there. A few other things I'll be taking a look at and printing off is a communication card, which tells me what frequencies is stuff like the tower, the ground control, and stuff like that. And some of this other stuff I would take a look at and probably even print off to help navigate there and some of the other. Some of the things I'll be taking a look at is like gas and stuff like that, if I need it. But with that, I would go for the airport diagrams. I would print them off and have them on an e-board itself. So real quick, if it's in an airport like this, what I would tend to do is have crowns with me. I'll make sure I'll bring crowns or 2-color pens or something like that, but at least whatever. And the point of this is when I land, I write out whatever on your knee pad and do whatever you need to do. But what you do is, say for example, you land and you're at A6 and they want you to do whatever you or B4. They basically can navigate you, as I've shown in a previous video on how to taxi. But basically, you draw with 1 color crown to where they want you to go, and then when you're about to take off, if you're doing a quick turnaround like that, use that other color crown to where they want you to go. Obviously, write things down and whatnot so you can back it up. But you can quickly do that and see where they want you to go and can figure out as a quick reference. So that's also something you do, and you can also go ahead and print off a few other things about airports and whatnot. But for the most part, that's the biggest ones I'll take a look at. So as far as that goes, so the first thing I do when having someone in is, first off, make sure that they are medically fit in case they have to take over at any moment, and you can talk them through stuff. But first things first, I just explain some basic stuff, and that way they know what they're in for. If they ask something like, hey, fly through that cloud or something like that, I tell them no. But one of the things I do when I try to find a path is I try to do something unique. And if we take a look at the map, is we can travel the coastline a little bit. And, as long as you're flying above a certain range, it should be all good. And basically, that way they get the sight of the coastline. And from there, what I do is basically explain, when I'm talking over radio, be quiet, stuff like that. And that way they don't run into any problems and don't cause any problems. Following that, because this is the last go, no-go area before takeoff, because once you're up in the air, you spend the fuel and whatnot. I do the final check on weather and whatnot in both the areas I'm taking off and also the area I'll be landing at, and that way I know what's what. And for the most part, the rest of it, I might ask them if they got any requests or whatnot. And within reason, something might be able to happen again, like travel along the coastline or just go directly there or something like that. Anyways, if you got any questions or anything else, then feel free to leave that in the comment section. And if you want me to check out a particular area within the game, then feel free to let me know and I'll see what I can do. Or if you want me to check out a different game, or you have some technology-based questions, feel free to leave that and I'll try to answer as quickly as possible. Leave a like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you next video. Hope you have a great day.